PR Connections Radio presents. This episode of We Have the Power is brought to you by Classy Communications, PR, and Advertising. Classy Communications provides public relations and marketing solutions for businesses, professionals, and non-profit organizations. They can deliver the true meaning of your business with press releases, social media marketing, web development, email marketing, book publishing, and much more. Wherever your potential clients are, they can help you connect with them. Visit classycommunications.net to learn more about their suite of services that can help your business stand out from the rest. Classy Communications is your solution for business success.
Well, welcome to another segment of We Have the Power. I'm your host, Brian Gardner. Today we're going to go long on the show. We're going to be over 30 minutes, but we're not going to do the infomercial we normally do because I'm starting a multi-part series on how we got to where we're at by a group of individuals and their children who have grown up to take over the despicable ranks of what they've been trying to do to this country for a long time. Many people have called them the deep state, the hidden government, all different names. I call them the perverted elite. Now, I do have a book called Plan for America and the World, which I am more interested in getting out to you for free to educate you on what's been happening in this country and how we can fix it than I am in making money on the book. So if you're interested in getting a copy of this book, either emailed to you or the hard copy, bgardner2323@yahoo.com. I am counting on you, now that you have my email, to use that respectfully and don't contact me unless you're interested in getting a hold of the book, either emailed or a hard copy. Please be mannerly and respectful with the information I just gave you. What we're going to be talking about and what I hope to educate you on is something that is not fun to have to contemplate. That there have been a group of individuals who are industrialists and bankers, members of the military industrial complex, who have been manipulating things from behind the scenes, not to help out humanity, not to bolster our Constitution or our freedoms or our liberties, but to thwart them and make sure that their power continues. Now, things got started in a bad way December 23rd, 1913, when they passed the Federal Reserve Act. They had been trying to gain control, the bankers and other individuals who are psychotic, evil, and insane, covertly for many, many years. But in December 23rd, 1913, now if you look at that date, that's pretty close to Christmas, most of the senators had gone home and they snuck the bill through, and now they had control of our money. They are a non-U.S. government agency. The Federal Reserve, that's a lie. The name is a lie. It's not anything controlled by the U.S. government. They are in control of our money, and I'll talk about various reasons why that's a bad thing. Woodrow Wilson was the president at the time and signed the bill into law, and here's what he said about signing that bill into law. I am a most unhappy man. I have unwittingly ruined my country. Here's a quote by the House of Rothschilds, who were moneylenders themselves years ago. Quote, "Let us control the money of a nation, and we care not who makes its laws." The reason it is so bad to have a private entity in charge of the money supply, very many reasons, but the main reason is that the country, when we have to go to war, we look around, we don't have the money for that, so we have to borrow money from somewhere. We should be borrowing it from ourselves, but we borrow it from this non-government agency, the Federal Reserve. They charge us interest on every dollar. And hey, guess what? They're not just going to be happy with World War I. Hey, we need more bribery, more money, more prostitution, more money, more drug money, more control money. So there's a book called The Men Behind Hitler. These covert people, part of the military-industrial complex, the bankers and that, helped Hitler rise to power because they wanted him to attack Russia. And he became a Frankenstein out of control and turned on Western Europe. And we had to enact World War II to stop him from total destruction and taking over the entire world. They helped create him, and he became out of control. Now, after World War II, the military-industrial complex, the CIA, all of that came about. And the military-industrial complex, particularly the most dangerous business in our world, is out of business if there isn't a war to fight. And that's why they're the most dangerous business, because if there isn't a war to fight, they'll go to a senator or the CIA or somebody say, hey, can't you cook up something? You know, we're building up a lot of inventory here. Come on, we're not making any money. We don't have any power. We can't ask for more money. There's no wars to be fought. They go, what do you need more money for? We lose all of our power. We lose our bribery money and other despicable things that money is used for. So they helped create the Korean War, Vietnam War, and this is a very, very important part of U.S. history. Young people actually brought that war to a close. Young people thought, well, we lost a revolution. No, they won. They created it so difficult. You see, kids weren't into drugs yet at that point. And they found out the Vietnam War was nothing more than a cash cow for people like Dow Chemical, Bell Helicopters, the military-industrial complex. These people are despicable. They didn't care how many Asians they killed. Hey, there's tons of Asians. We don't need them anyway. Just keep that war going and going and going. We'll make billions of dollars. Then when the young people started rising up against it, they started bringing drugs back in to the country on planes. Timothy Leary, who said, tune in, turn on, and drop out, was an avowed CIA agent. So he wanted to throw a wrench into the peace movement. Got kids on drugs, but it was too late. Young people had educated middle America that this war was not a viable situation, and it came to an end much earlier than the military-industrial complex and the Federal Reserve that we were borrowing money from to run that war and the Korean War and all that. They didn't want that war to stop. They were making millions from that war. Young people stopped it. And I'll talk about what happened to young people because of that. So back to the Federal Reserve. It gets instituted. We lose control of our money supply. I read you the quotes about it doesn't matter who's in power as long as we have control of the money. Now, from my book, I want to read a passage about the Federal Reserve. There is also some historical evidence that has been researched extensively by dedicated individuals like Bill Still and others. And you can see his award-winning documentary on YouTube. I implore you, I encourage you to watch that. Educate yourself. That President Lincoln was planning to fund the Civil War with American printed dollars. Not dollars coming from the Federal Reserve. He goes, hey, I need to borrow some money from you guys. And they would not give him a favorable interest rate. So he said, heck with you. I'll print my own money, which we should have been doing. And guess what? You know what happened to Lincoln. He had initially gone to the banks for the money needed to fund the war, but they refused to give him a reasonable interest rate for the money the government needed. So he decided to develop U.S. printed dollars instead. Lincoln was shortly thereafter assassinated. Other presidents and individuals that spoke openly about changing the relationship between the Fed and the U.S. government were either murdered or attempts were made to try and kill them. President Reagan, for example, was talking about changes in the banking industry before he was shot. Reagan never spoke of these changes after he was healed and back in the White House. Andrew Jackson opposed banking interests being rechartered in this country and is the only U.S. president to ever pay off the debt. An attempt was made on his life. Both guns failed to fire. The assassins claimed they had support from European banking interests. So part of their plan, and we're going to talk about the whole plan of the perverted elite, part of their plan was to get a hold of the money supply of the country, which they did, which they still have. And then they had to handle young people who were not on drugs, who were bright-eyed and bushy-tailed, and they were being told, you need to go over to Southeast Asia and fight a war for freedom and democracy and, saving Vietnam from falling into communist hands. That was a lie by the people that wanted to make Vietnam a cash cow. The Gulf of Tonkin incident was stated that North Korea had fired on one of our ships, and that was the sole reason that we had to start go to the Vietnam War. The French had been fighting there and got kicked out. And the Gulf of Tonkin incident, now documents have been released. That was a complete lie. Never happened. Total lie. Just to make it so that the Federal Reserve could have us borrowing money from them. Bell Helicopter, Dow Chemical, the military industrial complex. Hey, we can ride this baby for 40 years. And they forgot about the frickin' hippies who weren't on drugs yet, said, wait, I am not going over to Vietnam to fight a war when I don't know why we're doing that. They started looking into it. The Pentagon Papers were released. The March on Washington, unbelievably, had 500,000 people in Washington. And finally, it sunk in to middle-class America that this war was a sham. And it was brought to an end. Now, in the back rooms, the military-industrial complex, Dow Chemical, these kind of people, Bell Helicopters, those damn hippies cost us billions. Do something about it. Well, what did they do? Two things. This is part of their plan as well. Get into those schools. First of all, get the kids on drugs who are still speaking out. So they get sick, they commit suicide, they are so screwed up they couldn't challenge anything. Then get into the school system and dumb it down. We never really want our young people to be so aware of the Constitution, the Bill of Rights, our liberties, our freedoms, the military-industrial complex. Certainly any teacher that tries to educate them about the evil of the Federal Reserve, hell no. Get teachers in there who will teach America's bad, America's no good. And the second thing they did was to concoct this environmental menace, which is not true, which we're still dealing with today, that human activity is causing the planet to warm, and this is a lie. Let me see if I can share something with you. This is from the chapter in my book called The Hoax of Global Warming. Now they don't call it global warming, they call it climate change. Well, the climate is changing, but not in the way they're saying. And luckily, President Trump and his people who are working on these issues, Lee Zeldin, I believe is the one who's over at EPA, have kicked out most of these fake environmental mandates. Chapter 3, the hoax of global warming. The complete hoax and falsity regarding the claims of global warming and more recently warming climate change, and that human activity is causing a dangerous rise in Earth temperatures, represents one of the biggest con jobs forwarded by the following: the UN, sections of the US government, other governments, public servants, scientists who have been bought off, the power elite, and I now have changed that to the perverted elite, and the media. It is suspected that too much of what gets reported in the media on this issue is controlled by a new name, the perverted elite, and that is true. So not only did they dumb down the schools because they don't ever want young people getting in the way of their millions, you know, the military industrial complex and any other business that makes money off war, and they wanted to divert the attention to people to look inward. Oh, I have to live a simpler lifestyle. I can't have anything. I shouldn't have a car. You know, I should just, you know, be controlled by the state. You can come out of your house on odd number days. Otherwise, we have too many people in the world. You know, this kind of crap, you know. And the push toward electric vehicles, luckily, that is failing, was a plan to get everybody on electric cars based on a hoax. But if they got everybody on electric cars, they'd say, oh my gosh, guess what? I hate to tell you, the grid cannot support you charging your car every evening when you're going to work in the morning. So we're going to issue, permits. You can only drive your car if your last name is this or that, and then this day and all. Total control of our movement. That's what they wanted to achieve. And that's why don't ever buy an electric car. You're playing right into the hands of the perverted elite and how they want complete 24/7 control over us. Now, before I go any further, you could say, well, Brian hasn't shown me any documents. He hasn't proven this to be true. Okay. So if you care about your freedom and your kids' freedom and your kids' freedom and the freedom of this country into the future, then spend a little time of your time to research some of this, find out what's going on so you know the proper people to vote for and you know what's going on when they make pronouncements. Everybody must be this. Everybody must, get an injection. Everybody must do this. Minute I hear that, I go, wait a minute, that's mass control. And there's enough information out there, if you do the research, that some of these recent mandates are dangerous and life-threatening in some cases. This is the kind of control they want. Now, some of their psychotic and insane, evil minions have even stated, it'd be really better if the Earth's population was 300 million people. That would be really better, We're talking about, in one way or another, getting rid of over 6 billion people. And this does not let Hitler off the hook for the 6 million plus Jews he killed. But when you're talking about them openly saying they think the population of Earth should be 300 million, they make Hitler look like an amateur. This is how evil these people are. You have to raise your confront on how evil people can be. Otherwise, you're going to dismiss this, and you're going to wake up one day and go, wait, there's a Constitution. You can't do that. And they won't follow the Constitution because it will have been long torn up and thrown away. They don't want us to have freedoms. They are antisocial personalities, and antisocial personalities have one trait, if they have any. They don't want to see things getting better, and they're terrified of people having freedom. I'll go into that at another point, and you can research my show on the antisocial personality. I talk in length about what kind of person that is. And that is the trouble we're having. We're dealing with antisocial personalities. So they get people all into this environmental movement. Marijuana's okay to smoke, get on drugs, all kinds of drugs, cocaine, and now they're making money on this. Now, there's an interesting side note. It looks like their plan was to get as many people involved with drugs as possible to destroy the verve and the vitality of people. Because if a person is like, yeah, man, whatever, yeah, man, do you think that kind of person is ever going to find their crimes? No. A person who's bright, intelligent, yeah, they're going to go, hey, wait a minute. Senator, you didn't answer the question. Where is that money? Why are you doing this action? Da, 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 da. Now, for those kids who are the brightest and the kids who are you're really not doing well in class because it's so dumbed down, what did they do? They brought in the psychiatrist and made up all this alphabet soup, ADHD and all this stuff, and then they drugged those kids. And those drugs have horrible side effects. They don't ever cure anybody. Let me tell you right now, they do not cure anyone. It is a tool used by the perverted elite. Yeah, when your uncle, your kid is on those drugs, suddenly they appear like they're not acting out anymore because they are drugged so much they can't even remember why they are depressed. But here's what's going on. Here's the thing that caused them to be depressed. You add psych medications to it. It's still there. It's just covered up by psychiatric medication with terrible side effects. You have not solved the problem because they don't know how to solve the problem. They know nothing about how the mind really works. And I'm going to be doing a show on a book that you can read. You read this book, you make sure you understand a few technical terms in it. You will know more than a 4-year degree psychiatrist, and you doing this form of counseling in a shorter amount of time than being on psychiatric medication for the rest of your life will be able to help yourself and others find out what is causing you to be in trouble mentally, how to get it fixed permanently with no drugs used, no side effects. That's an upcoming show. So with about 7 minutes left in the show today, I want to keep coming forward. So they get the schools completely, a brainwashing institution. We don't want bright kids asking questions. We don't want them asking. We don't teach really much about the Constitution. America's bad. We're polluting the world. On and on and on. The Republicans are the problem because the Republicans are the ones who stand for most of the part right solutions and right policies. Well, they don't want young people knowing that. They'll grow up and become Republicans and no one will be voting for the Democratic Party, which has been taken over for the most part by the perverted elite. Forwarding failed policies. I'm a pretty emotional person. I'll tell you right now. I was in tears when I watched recently the State of the Union address and President Trump said, stand up if you believe that a major part of what the U.S. government should be doing is protecting American citizens, not illegal aliens. The Democrats would not stand up. It was atrocious. They are insane people who are so controlled by the perverted elite, they can no longer see truth, and they are brainwashed to a certain extent. There's other words I would use about them. One starts with a B, one starts with an A, one starts with an F, okay? These people should be labeled as being in treason, and all of them should be kicked out of office once a trial is held to show their guilt. They swore to defend the Constitution. against all enemies. And they have become the party of the enemy of our Constitution, our freedoms, and having a bright and healthy and prosperous future. This is what the perverted elite has been working on for decades. They took a look at the two parties and said, okay, we got to get control of one side or the other. All right, let's check out the Republicans. Well, they're too much into Christianity and God, and, you should stand on your own and make your own way. You shouldn't depend on the government to, help you through every darn thing. And who are we going to get? Hey, the Democrats. Wow. They believe the government should take care of you. They, believe anything we say. And we'll hide the fact that we're racist because they're not really racist, but we are. But we'll use welfare as a way to keep people of color in a certain economic strata, make them dependent on the government, because independence leads to bright thinking. And if we have a bunch of bright thinking people, they're going to find out what we're doing. Part of the reason Martin Luther King was killed is he was going to be talking to black people about, do not go to Vietnam and fight that fake war. And they couldn't allow that, had to get rid of him. Kennedy had printed his own money and was going to bypass the Federal Reserve. Gone. There are reasons why these people were taken out covertly with the help of the perverted elite. Absolutely. Princess Diana, she successfully had started to stop landmines, which is part of the money that the Federal Reserve makes. And, she's the type of person, if she wanted to talk about her paperclip collection, the world's media would be there. So the military industrial freaked out and said, what if she goes after another weapon that we're making a lot of money on and gets it banned? And they waited 45 minutes outside the hospital because she was alive after that car crash. Everybody else was killed. She was alive. They waited 45 minutes before they took her into the hospital to make sure that she was dead. She probably was pregnant with an Arab baby, and that freaked him out too, because then an Arab would have been, next on the throne or whatever. And I don't know if I'm particularly happy with that, but it doesn't mean that because the person is an Arab that he's going to be bad. But they are racist to the core, and they did not want that. So she had to go, and just on and on. And the number of people, the Clintons that died who knew the Clintons' insider information, astronomical, numerically could never have happened. People just wiped out who knew too much about them. So in number 2, I will go into more things that the perverted elite has been working on, is still working on. The thing I want to leave you with is get your kids out of public school immediately. It is a brainwashing tool. Your kids are going to come out just absolutely a mess. Get them out of public school as fast as you can, and never turn any family member over to a psychiatrist. They do not know how to make people better, and they do not know what causes mental problems. It's just like with your car, and you tell your mechanic, hey, my car's making noise. It's unmanageable. What can you do? Well, we really should tear the engine apart and find out what's going on. Oh, that costs too much money. No. Just put Gunko in the engine. I've heard Gunko is really good. Sir, I can put Gunko in your engine and the car will be more manageable. But when we tear down the engine in 10,000 miles, you are not going to be happy. I don't care. I just want it more manageable. So what do? We put Gunko into our kids to make them more manageable, which never, ever, ever fixes why they're having mental problems. No. Get your kids out of school. Never turn them over to psychiatry. It's part of the plan of the perverted elite to get people into the hands of psychiatry. Don't play into their hands. Thank you for watching, and make sure that you are here next Thursday at 5 o'clock Pacific Coast time to see part 2 as we continue to unravel what the perverted elite has been doing and what their plans are. And if you can't be here 5 o'clock Pacific next Thursday, you can always go to prconnectionsradio.com. We have the power, and look at shows from the past. Educate yourself about this horrible danger represented by the perverted elite. With knowledge, we can stop them. We have the power. Thank you for watching.
PR Connections Radio thanks you for watching this podcast. Check out more episodes of this show and our others at prconnectionsradio.com.